Om Bhurabhuva Svatassaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय साई राम। साईं भक्तों, आज मैं साईं गीता का अगला वीडियो आपको दे रहा हूँ। ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों में इसको पहुंचाइए और साईं की जो फिलॉसफी है, साईं का जो बहुत मेन जो टीचिंग है वो इसके द्वारा लोगों को पहुंच जाएगी, साईं भक्तों को पहुंच जाएगी। I start the pest of desire and hatred. Consider a giant tree which has a number of branches heaped with flowers and fruits. It's a very grand and attractive tree. One day, this tree begins to dry up and its flowers fall off. Is it because there is a shortage of water or manure? Has there been some neglect in feeding it? No, there is some kind of pest that has attacked its roots and is destroying the beautiful tree. Through the roots, the pest enters and starts to eat up this giant tree. In the same way, once you allow these pests of desire and hatred to enter your heart, then one day you will quite suddenly come to ruin. This is absolutely certain. In the material world, you think that a rich man is a very important individual, but in the world of the spirit, material wealth is of no consequence. Charity is a quality that is much greater than all the possessions associated with wealth. If there is no charity, wealth has no intrinsic value at all. You have four heirs, each of whom will enter a claim to your wealth. The first is charity, the second is the government, the third is the thief, and the fourth is fire. Each of them expects to inherit your wealth, but if you were to hand over all your wealth to your first heir charity, then the others will get no share of it. When you give freely to charity, you will find that the other claimants will show great respect for your decision and will not press their own claims. For example, we know that the government gives you an income tax exemption when you donate to charity. Even fire will be a little frightened of you and thieves will leave you alone. So when you give to charity, which may be considered your oldest son and your natural heir, then the others who would otherwise try to claim your wealth will respect your action and not interfere. But if you possess wealth and do not give it in charity, then the thief will have his eye on you, and the government will also try to catch hold of you and claim your riches as its own. If these two for some reason choose to ignore you, then fire will come one day and destroy your possessions. Let all the noble human qualities shine within you. The Gita has declared that it is charity, not wealth, which is really important. In a similar way, in human beings, it is not the ability to speak well, but the truth which is uttered that is important. If there is no truth in your speech, then whatever you say will have no value at all. The Gita has also declared that it is not life itself but a good character that is important. A life devoid of good character is useless. You have to develop your character and earn a good name so that all the noble human qualities will shine forth in you. Your most important duty is to harbor good thoughts, to have good behavior, to speak good words and to lead a good life. You must be very careful with your words and actions so that you will never earn a bad name. Instead of living the life of a crow for 100 years, scavenging of others. It is far better to live a few moments as a swan with an untainted name and unblemished character. The Gita extols such a sterling soul whose life is replete with goodness. Good actions are far more important than physical strength. A body that is not being used to serve others is nothing but a dead body. Use your body in the service of mankind, not just for the purpose of catering to your own selfish needs. Today, whatever man does, thinks, or utters is primarily prompted by selfishness. In order to overcome this tendency, you have to constantly seek opportunities to help others and develop the principle of service in this process. By your good actions, all of humanity will get sanctified. It is very difficult to obtain birth as a human being. You must spend some time thinking over how to properly utilize this rare life that has been given to you and develop good habits which will overcome these weaknesses of desire and anger that waste your golden chance. Replacing bad habits with good habits. How do you best overcome the deeply ingrained bad habits and replace them with good habits? Consider a small example. One day a beautiful dog happens to come to your house. You do not know to whom it belongs. It is such an attractive thing. In order to keep it there for some time and enjoy its presence, you give it a little food. Next day it comes about the same time and again you feed it and enjoy having it visit you. In this way it comes back every day to get fed and gradually over a period of time attachment increases and this dog now regularly visits your house, spending more and more time there. One day you find that it will no longer leave, it just continues to live at your house from that time on. But the happiness that you enjoy in looking at physical beauty does not last very long. Once the beauty is no longer accompanied by joy, it becomes obnoxious to you. In the case of this dog, you soon get tired of having it around all the time, and so you look for a way to get rid of it. To begin with, you must ask yourself why the dog has attached itself to you and is now living in the house. The reason is that right from the very beginning, you have been feeding it regularly every day. You have also been stroking it, playing with it, and paying so much attention to it. It is this repeated daily practice which has created the attachment between yourself and the dog. Now you must develop a new regular practice which will break this attachment and help you to get rid of the dog. For this, the best method is to reverse the original process that created the attachment and made the object so dear to you. Steady practice is the key to all accomplishments in life. In the case of the dog, if no food is given for some days and everyone is indifferent to it, paying no attention to it whatsoever, then soon of its own accord the dog will go away. Therefore, it is the practice that is important. It is through practice that you have developed certain attachments and undesirable qualities, and it is through practice that you can change them. The Gita has said that for everything, practice is the starting point. In the 12th verse of the chapter on devotion, it says, through practice, you will be able to get knowledge. Through knowledge, you will be able to develop meditation. Through meditation, you will develop sacrifice. And only when you have sacrifice will you obtain peace of mind. Therefore, it all starts with steady practice. For many births, you have been enamored with beauty and you have engaged yourself in desire and anger until these passions have struck deep roots in your heart. Now you have become a slave of your desires. Mere words will not be enough to get rid of them. After having practiced attachment for so long, These negative qualities have developed such strong roots that even if you were to cut them off at the surface, they would sprout up again and again. When desires have become an integral part of you, it is only by reversing the process and practicing detachment and renunciation that you will be able to get rid of these deeply ingrained pests. In the beginning, desires are extremely attractive and sweet. After some time, you develop a disgust for them, but then it is already quite difficult. In fact, almost impossible to get rid of them. Therefore, it is best if right from the very beginning you develop renunciation and detachment as part of your nature and give no place to importance to desires. Unless you have such an attitude of sacrifice and a capacity to resist desire, you will not be ready to receive the grace of God. A bullock or a horse which cannot be controlled, a car without brakes, or a life which is not based on control of these senses are all dangerous. Control of the senses is very important. You need to tightly control the tendencies of the mind to go off in all directions, running after desires. Mind and senses must be kept in check within limited bounds. Even happiness which exceeds certain limits can be harmful. For everything there is a limit. There is a range of healthy functioning. Keeping the senses within their normal limits. The normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. If it goes up even 1 degree, there will be a disease in progress. Only when it is within the appropriate level does it indicate a healthy body. In the same way, your blood pressure is normal when it is 120 over 80. If the blood pressure goes up to 150 over 90, it indicates an abnormal condition in the body, which may be indicative of an illness. Similarly, the heartbeat should be around 75. If it increases, an ailment will be in progress. The same is also true for your senses. There is a range of light that is appropriate to healthy functioning of the eyes. If the light is too bright, the eyes cannot see and will be harmed. This is true as well in the case of the ears. There is a proper range of sound. If the level of sound exceeds that range, such as many happen close to an airplane, a train, or a loudspeaker, the hearing will become impaired. Like this, all the senses are limited to a normal range of operation. We see that life function we see that life functions a lot like a limited company in the business world. If you want to carry on unlimited business with this limited company, then you will be subject to a great deal of distress. Therefore, you have to impose restrictions on your behavior and spend your life acting always within certain prescribed limits. This can also be called a discipline. Discipline is particularly necessary for the spiritual progress of an individual. Without discipline, a person is likely to become nothing but an animal. But discipline too has to be exercised within limits. There is even a need to regulate your discipline if you are to enjoy life. You see that for everything there is a limit and a boundary. If you stay within these limits, you will not be troubled by life. The Gita has taught that desire and anger are the primary obstacles to liberation. So it is vitally important that they be curbed. You need to take proper notice of these two dreadful enemies of man and develop complete control over them. These enemies are not external to you. They are your inner enemies. If you are defeated by your inner enemies, how can you ever hope to conquer your external ones? Once you keep desire and anger under firm check, you will be able to defeat your outer enemies quite easily. The Gita has shown that the way to conquer desire and anger is by saturating your life with renunciation, sacrifice, and love. True, run, uh, true renunciation, focus on God, not the world, If you want to reach the Lord and have a vision of Him, the most important quality that you need to develop is detachment. Detachment endows you with the capacity to internalize your vision. Detachment allows you to introvert your mind and dwell on your inner beauty, embodiments of love. Once you recognize the defects and weaknesses in the objects of the world, you soon lose your desire to possess them. The mind is very strong and fickle. It is also very obstinate. It is forever determined to get its way. Arjuna prayed to Krishna for help in controlling his mind. He lamented, O Lord, the mind is very powerful and vivid. Krishna replied, Arjuna, if you practice detachment, you will certainly be able to control your mind. Control of the mind. The mind can be compared to a poplar tree. The poplar leaves are always shaking whether there is a wind or not. Similarly, the mind is always unsteady and wavering. In addition to its wavering quality, the mind is also strong and stubborn. Take for example an elephant. It is very strong and it can be quite cruel too. However, with the help of a god, you can bring it under control. Likewise, the horse is rarely still. It is always moving its limbs, its ears, its head, or its tail. Being unsteady, it will first go one way and then another, but with a bit, it can be controlled and made to go in the direction that the rider wants. Another example is the monkey, which roams here and there, the very picture of unsteadiness and fickleness. But with training, it too can be brought under control. Therefore, just as with a goad, you can control an elephant, which may be very cruel and strong. Just as with a bit, you can control a horse, which is nervous and unstable. With training, even a monkey can be controlled. In the same way, the mind, which is also strong and fickle, can be controlled by detachment and constant practice. Detachment. The detachment means realizing the temporary nature of objects and not allowing your mind to get attached to these transient things. It does not necessarily mean that you feel disgust or hatred for them. It means that you feel no mental attachment towards them. Totally giving up all the objects of the phenomenal world is not possible. However, you can give up your minus, your sense of possessiveness. Once you give that up, then you can go ahead and enjoy the various objects of the world. They will cause you no harm. If the phenomenal world, everything, every person, and every object undergoes change, the world consists of six types of change: birth, growth, maturity, decline, degeneration, and death. These are the changes to which all objects are subjected. To, to delude yourself into thinking that this transient, impermanent world is permanent and become attached to the objects in it is very foolish indeed. In the temple of Vishnu, you will see statues and pictures of Garuda, the eagle. Similarly, in the temple of Shiva, you will find statues and pictures of Nandi, the bull. And in the temple of Rama, you will see a portrayal of Hanuman, the monkey. In all these depictions, the concentration of each of these beings, Nandi, Garuda, and Hanuman, is on the feet of the Lord. They see only the Lord, not the world. All of these demonstrate the right kind of attachment. Their attachment is to the Lord who is permanent, and their detachment is from the world which is transient. The significance of all these symbolic representation is that you should not care much for what is transient, but always concentrate and dwell on the permanent entity which is Lord Himself. Once you recognize the defects of objects, their transitoriness and impermanence, then you will gradually lose your desire to have them. There are a number of stories and show how emperors had a lot Emperors who had a lot of wealth at their disposal and possessed all the luxuries and properties one could dream of did not derive much joy or peace of mind from them. In order to get peace of mind, they would go to the forest and perform penance. From this, they ultimately derived the satisfaction and inner solace for which they had been yearning. Make the best use of every object. Detachment involves more than just recognizing the defects and weaknesses in objects which result from their transitory nature. Detachment also involves the positive quality of getting the most out of the objects of the world. You should always strive to make the best use of an object and appreciate it for what it is. There is no point in just dwelling on the limitation and sorrow that objects of the world produce. But you should know to properly use two objects to perform your duty in the world. Then you will acquire some satisfaction. In the larger sense, it is really giving up worldly sorrow and gaining the bliss of the Supreme Self that is true detachment. Giving up family, wife, children, and properties and then going to the forest cannot be called detachment. Detachment is recognizing the weak aspects in the nature of the objects as well as accepting their positive and strong points. Whenever you get into difficulty, whether physical, mental, financial, or any other type of problems, you may develop a sense of detachment towards the objects causing their state. This is quite natural. For example, suppose a person dies and his body is taken to the burning ground where it is cremated. When you look at such a situation, you develop a particular type of detachment, philosophizing that the body has to come to an end sometime or another. But this detachment is only a temporary phenomenon, a temporary feeling. It cannot be considered true detachment. Another example is when a mother is delivering her first baby, not being able to suffer the pain she shouts that she would rather die. This also is not true detachment. As soon as the baby is born, suppose she has a girl, she immediately wants to get a boy the next time. A similar situation develops when someone does not get his wishes fulfilled. Here also he develops a certain type of detachment. All these attitudes are temporary. Permanent detachment is something quite different. Permanent, de- Permanent detachment is an intense detachment as opposed to dull or weak detachment. For example, a person may have resolved to go on a pilgrimage to one of the holy places in India, but then there may be a strong tendency to postpone it to the next month. If it is a matter of doing something good, such as going on a pilgrimage, one will tend to postpone it. On the other hand, if it is a matter of doing something bad, one prefer to do it right on the spot without wasting any time. People usually will not make very great effort to perform good deeds. This may be seen as a type of weak detachment which tends to postpone implementing good resolutions and performing good actions. But such behavior will not help you to reach your spiritual goal. It is intense detachment which is essential for progress on the spiritual path. Harish Chandra and Buddha. If you decide that a particular activity is good and sacred, you should not postpone it. You should immediately implement it and see to it that this good action is successfully carried out. This was the royal path laid down for all by the Buddha. Once Gautama Buddha realized that the body was impermanent, that none of the worldly things were going to last, he resolved to seek out and discover the unchanging truth. He gave up his family and his kingdom and went into the forest to realize the ultimate reality. There was a there was another great ruler who had an intense sense of sacrifice and detachment. His name was Harish Chandra. Although he was an emperor, though a series of unfortunate circumstances, he lost everything he had in the world, his kingdom, his wife and family, and spent his days as caretaker of a cremation ground. One day when Harishchandra first started performing his duties in the cremation ground, the corpse of a rich man was brought there by a large number of friends. They brought the body, set it on fire, and immediately went back to their homes. Usually, when a body is set on fire, a little weight is put on it. Otherwise, as soon as the heat comes, the body finds. This was the royal path laid down for all by the Buddha. One day, when Harishchandra was first started performing his duty in the cremation ground, the corpse of a rich man was brought. Therefore, by a large number of friends, they brought the body, set it on fire, and immediately went back to their homes. Usually, when a body is set on fire, a little weight is put on it. Otherwise, as soon as the heat comes, the body bends as if it were getting up and then lies down again. Only Harishchandra remained in the burning ground that day. No friends or relatives of the dead man stayed behind to keep a watch on the body. Harishchandra went to get a little more fuel to put on the fire. Suddenly he saw the body lift itself up. He was surprised and went near it to have the close look. As Harishchandra approached the pyre, he noticed that the body had by itself returned to a prone position. For an instant he thought that it was still alive, as if sitting up to look for its relatives and friends, but then he realized that the whole episode was just a momentary illusion of a corpse appearing alive caused by the heat of the fire. Harishchandra thought to himself, in the same way that I mistook this corpse to be alive, I thought this world to be real, but it is unreal. It gives only an illusion of reality. Harishchandra lamented that such a wealthy man whose corpse was brought there had no relatives or friends to stay with his body until the end. He thought, whatever may be the position and the riches of a person, not even his wife or children retain any attachment to it after his death. As a result of this experience, Harishchandra developed an intense detachment toward the object and form of the world. Worldly attachments are like poison. Every day, at every time, there will be changes occurring in all the objects of creation. These changes are not artificial. They are not imaginary. They are natural and inherent in the very nature of objects. Once you recognize that the world is basically a stage for the continuous natural occurrence of changes and that change is inherent in the very nature of the objects of the world, then you will become free from suffering. Anyone who realizes that there is a lethal toxin contained in the fangs of a poisonous snake will not casually go near it. If you see an approaching scorpion with its poisonous tail held up, ready to strike, would you not run away from it? Only a small innocent child or a totally ignorant person would go near it, get stung and die. You make every effort to avoid a poisonous creature because you know its harmful nature. In the same way, you would make every effort to avoid worldly attachments if you knew their harmful nature. The Lord taught in the Gita that instead of undergoing all the sufferings that go with developing attachments and then getting disillusioned when the inevitable changes begin to happen, it would be far better from the very beginning to remain unattached toward the things and objects of the world. But now you go on planning many things and attaching yourself to many things in order to gain some short-term joys. You exhaust yourself thinking and planning. It should do this, I should do that, or I should do this instead of that, and get yourself involved in countless projects and activities. But you will have to bear the consequences of all these actions in the future. The seeds you have sown by your actions will mature and you will reap the harvest of those seeds. If the seeds belong to one variety, You cannot expect to get back a different kind of result. Whatever acts you have indulged in, the appropriate fruits thereof will be given to you in the form of an invisible garland which is hung around your neck. When you are born from the womb of your mother, no garland can be seen, neither a garland of pearls, nor one of precious gemstones, nor a necklace of gold will be visible around your neck. Nevertheless, there surely is a garland there. That garland is composed of the consequences of your past deeds, which you have performed during your previous births. That garland given to you by the Creator will adorn your neck, although it will not be seen by the physical eyes. The person who recognizes the truth and that for every action there will be a resulting consequence will take up only good activities and will spend his life indulging only in actions that will earn him good results. This has been taught by the Gita as a spiritual exercise of particular importance to devotees. It leads eventually to developing indifference and detachment to the things of the world, and it results in the acquisition of true wisdom. Here is an example which illustrates this illusory nature of the world and the detachment you should have it. King Janka's dream. King Janka had acquired extraordinary proficiency in the knowledge of God. He was called the king devoid of body. In other words, he had been able to transcend body consciousness. One particular night after dinner, he was discussing certain administrative problems with his ministers. He got a he got back to his bedroom a little late. A meal had been set out for him, but he did not touch it. He relaxed on a sofa while the queen massaged his feet. Soon the king fell asleep. The queen asked the various attendants present to leave the room and made sure that the king, who was extremely tired, would not be disturbed in his sleep. She covered him with a blanket and banked the lights low. Quietly remaining by was shortly afterwards King Janka quite suddenly opened his eyes, sat up, looked around incredulously at his surroundings, and in the most peculiar way began to ask, is this real or is that real? Is this the truth or is that the truth? The queen became a little frightened by his bewildered look and strange question. She tried to find out what exactly he was asking, but he would not explain or answer any of her questions. He just went on saying, is this the truth or is that the truth? She called for the ministers, consuls, and others, important officials. They all assembled and began questioning the king. Maharaj, what is your doubt? What exactly are you asking? But the Maharaja would not respond to them. Finally, the ministers brought the great sage Vasishtha to the court. Vasishtha asked the king, what are you asking? What is troubling you? The king was replying to all the questions with the same query. Is that the truth or that this is the truth? Is this reality or is that reality? Says Vasishtha, being omniscient, closed his eyes and meditated for a while to find out the cause of the king's strange behavior. Vasishtha realized that the king had suddenly awakened from a vivid dream in which he had forfeited his kingdom and found himself wandering lost, alone, and despondent in a forest. He was feeling very hungry and also very tired and forsaken. As he wandered through that forest, he kept shouting, I am hungry, I am hungry. It happened that there were some robbers in that forest. Those robbers were just sitting down in a glade nearby to have their meal, eating from plates made of leaves. Taking pity on him, the robbers made themselves known and invited Janka to join them, offering him a portion of their meal. Just at that moment, a tiger came upon them and they all ran for their lives. The tiger helped himself to all the food. Again, Janka found himself staggering through the forest, crying out, oh, I am so hungry. I am so very hungry. When he woke up, he discovered he was in a palace on a royal sofa by the side of queen, with a silvery tray filled with luxurious food and dainties sitting on the table nearby, and he began asking whether he was the starving, forsaken wretch begging food for robbers in a fearful forest, or whether he was a king living in a sumptuous palace surrounded by all possible luxuries. Is this true or is that true? Is this real or is that real? Maharshi Vasishtha immediately recognized the king's confusion and said, King Janaka, neither beggar nor emperor is real. You alone are real. You yourself are the truth. The you who was present as pure consciousness in the dream state, playing the role of the beggar, and who is present in the waking state, playing the role of the king. This you who witnessed both these states is your true reality. Life during the daytime is a daydream. During the night, it is a night dream. They are both illusions. They are filled with defects and flaws because they constantly change from one thing to another. So they cannot be real. Only you who remain unchanged in all these states are real, free of all change and illusion. This was also emphasized in the Gita, where Krishna pointed out the important truth that he that the world is constantly changing and the Atma alone is real and ever unchanging. The anguish of separation from God. Detachment does not mean leaving behind everything to go to the forest and adopt the life of a renunciate. Penance does not refer to certain postures or bodily deprivations. Penance refers to the intense anguish you experience when you feel yourself separated from God. Whenever that anguish of separation is with you, whenever you may be, then you are. Wherever you may be, then you are engaged in penance. All worldly experiences are governed by combinations of the three attributes: inertia or chaos, action or reaction, and rhythm or calm. The anguish of penance, with its intense aspirations for reaching God, takes you into a state of being which transcends these three worldly qualities. At the time, you will experience a deep inner serenity and unity of thought, word and deed. Thought, word, and deed are the causes of karma. They are called the instruments of action. It is the union of these three instruments of action which may be described as penance. When that union is complete, there follows an ineffable joy, which is the very bliss of the Atma. So, true penance is the point at which the three instruments of action merge together into one and you experience the eternal delight of your immortal self. Consider the following example. Every day you enjoy the benefits of electricity. In your room, you may have an electric fan. There are three blades attached to the motor of the fan. If they were to rotate in three different directions, you would not get much of a breeze. But when they rotate in unison as if there were a single blade going round, then you can enjoy a very good flow of their air from the fan. So enjoyment of the cool breeze comes only when all the three blades are working together and rotate as one. In the very same way, when the three instruments of action, thought, word and deed merge together and work as one, you can enjoy real bliss. In this illustration, your heart may be compared to the room containing the fan. The three instruments of action may be compared to the three blades of the fan. Your intellect may be thought of as the electric switch. Your spiritual power, the energy emanating from the Supreme Self, may be thought of as the electricity that energizes the fan. Your spiritual practice is the process of clarifying your intellect and thereby turning on the switch. When the three instruments of action work together in harmony, just as the three blades of the fan go around together, then all your anguish become transformed into bliss. In this way, you can convert your life force and your entire spiritual power into bliss. True renunciation is turning your mind towards God. Mankind has forgotten the ability to perform penance. When you let your vision roam in the temporary and transient world, your spiritual path spirals downward into inertia and stasis. When you concentrate your vision and your awareness on the permanent God, then you are part, practicing penance and your spiritual progress leaps ahead. If a door is locked and you want to open it, you must put the key inside the lock and turn it toward the right, then it will open. But if you turn the key to the left, the lock remains closed. It is the same lock and the same key. The difference is in the way you turn the key. Your heart is that lock and your mind the key. If you turn your mind toward the God, you get liberation. If you turn it toward the objects world, you remain in bondage. It is the same mind that is responsible for both liberation and bondage. True renunciation is turning your mind towards God. It means constantly bringing your mind back from other thoughts to dwell on the permanent entity. Such mental detachment and sacrifice must be developed into a very intense feeling. You should not keep on postponing the practice to the next day and then the day following that and so on. Suppose you expect to go to a marriage, you would keep certain clothes ready several days before the occasion. Or suppose you had a chance to go to the movies, then you will get ready very fast. Even for just going for a walk, you make yourself ready in a trice. Well, if you cannot go to the cinema today, you can easily postpone it to another day. If you do not go for a walk now, you can always go another time. But the Lord's journey cannot be postponed or cancelled. You must always be ready to accept whatever comes your way. Time waits for no one. Time does not follow man. Man has to follow time. Time flows on continuously and takes everything with it. The Gita teaches you that you may enjoy the various objects of the world, but while enjoying them, you would not get yourself attached to them, thinking that you possess them. This is feeling of renunciation or detachment is one of the most essential aspect of the spiritual philosophy propounded in the Gita. Detachment, unifying thoughts, words, and deeds. For the wheel of existence, the mind is the focal point, the central hub from which all worldly activities emerge. To be able to penetrate this focal point and obtain a vision of the immortal self that is beyond, you must cultivate the practice of non detachment. Make every effort to develop this most important discipline. Embodiments of love. Renunciation or detachment can also be thought of as non attachment. Non attachment is when the mind and the senses become unaffected by the objects of the world and remain indifferent to their attraction and repulsion. The mind covers the true self, therefore, the mind can be described as a veil. It is a veil of ignorance, for it hides your true self and keeps you unaware of its magnificent presence within you. But the mind itself is tied down by the sense organs, and the sense organs are attracted to the objects of the phenomenal world and get bound by them. Therefore, the first step in realizing your true self is gain control over your sense organs. For this, the practice of non attachment is essential. Detachment leads to self realization. Once you are free of attachment to the sense object, then the sense organs will no longer be able to bind your mind. A mind unencumbered by the senses becomes pure and transparent. It no longer imposes its covering influence over the Atma. When the veil of the mind dissolves, true, your true self becomes aware of itself. Then you are immersed in the unity of all existence and enjoy the bliss which is your true nature. The Gita has taught that non attachment is crucial for realizing your true self. That true self is the one supreme self. Detachment or non detachment has also been emphasized in the yoga classic of Patanjali, a great seer of ancient India. He taught that detachment is the natural property of a mind which remains unswayed by the sense organs and objects which attract them. Such a mind, being free from the slavery of the sense organs and sense objects, is pure and unaffected by the delusion. You gain a pure mind when you see all the objects of this world as transient and changing. The ancient wisdom teachings have declared that from the lowest creature in the phenomenal world to the highest, right up to the heavenly beings, everything is ephemeral and undergoing change. Knowing this, you should relinquish all attachments to sense objects. Any attachment will gradually but steadily lead to bondage. Just as moving the firewood from the fire automatically extinguished the flame, removing the sense objects from the senses automatically renders them impotent. The wisdom teachings have stressed in a most forceful way that only that person who does not care for anything less than full realization of the Supreme Self is a person of true renunciation. Neither objects of the world nor even the heavenly abode of the Lord could sway him from his one pointed focus. There is a story related to one of the ancient wisdom teachings about a very wise young boy who, because of an oath made by his father, found himself in the realm of death. The god of death tried to win over the boy. He said to him, I will give you complete mastery and lordship, cover all the wealth and all the power of the world, and I will give you all the pleasures of the heavenly world. But the boy replied, this world and all the worlds beyond you are but transient, they will not last. I do not want anything to do with that which comes and goes. I only want to have the vision of the Supreme Self. I want to realize the ultimate truth, that which never changes. The world with its bondage and all the sorrow that goes with it is for the person who is swayed by the objects of the senses. They do not interest me in the least. The boy was a Nachiketa and the holy person was Lord Yama. And this story comes in Katha Upanishad. Attachment to objects which you think belong to you. Let us suppose that you have been living in a particular house for a long time. One day you have to shift to another dwelling. You pack all your belongings and put them in a conveyance and bring them to the new house. Now, it is a common experience that you even go to the extent of wrapping the worn out slippers and the old broomsticks in newspapers to carry you them with you because you think that they belong to you. What is the reason for this attitude? The reason is that you have become bound by your attachment to the sense object. You have so much interest in packing up all those old things and taking them with you because you are attached to them. You feel they are yours. But then consider another example, that of a college principal or the headmaster of a school. In every educational institution, there will be number of valuable articles. For instance, in the lab, there will be some highly valuable equipment, many tables, chairs, other items of furniture, a wall clock, and so on. When the headmaster of that school retires, or is transferred, he feels no attachment to these things, and so he lives with the same free mind that he had when he came. He does not worry and bother himself about leaving behind all those valuable articles when he goes. The reason is that he knows perfectly well that none of those things belong to him. They belong to the management or to the school trust or to the government. Therefore, with a sense of detachment and indifference to those objects, he leaves the school. Where there is a sense of minus and possessiveness, there will be suffering. If you do not have that feeling of possessiveness, you will not be bound by anything and will not suffer. Therefore, for all bondage, suffering, and sorrow, it is just the I-ness or minus and is responsible. Like the school principal, you may make use of all the objects that you find in the world. Do not give up the objects themselves and do not give up your actions and activities. Just give up the attachment that you have towards the objects and give up the attachment that you have towards the world and your activities in it. Give up the fruits of your actions. Another way of saying this is give up the fruits of your actions, perform your duty with a sense of complete detachment, realizing the defects in the object. Once you understand the underlying laws that govern the world and recognize the defects that are inherent in both the objects of the world and the relationship you have in the world, you will quickly be able to overcome the attachments you have towards them. Before you were born, who was the parent and who was the child? Before your marriage, who was the husband and who was the wife? Only after birth was there a parent and a child. Before birth, there was no such relationship, and after that, there will be no such relationship. It is only during the short transitional period in between that the feeling of possessiveness and attachment arises. This is all due to defects in your vision and defects in your approach. It comes from a narrow minded, short sighted attitude. For all your sorrows, it is your feelings and attitudes alone that are responsible. Once you recognize the defects in objects and relationships, you will have no desire to possess them. Try to understand the principle of detachment. You must reach a state in which you do not have any kind of attachment and bondage even during the dream and deep sleep state. If you encourage a sense of attachment during the waking state, it will be there in a subtle way during the dream state and the deep sleep state. The dream state may be compared to a reflection in the mirror. Whatever you experience in the waking state will impress itself in the dream state and will be seen as a reflection there. Therefore, the waking and dream states are something like the object and its image. If in the waking state you take the right path, recognizing truth and conducting yourself in the light of this truth, then you will be treading the right path even in the dream state. To succeed, you have to recognize the defects of the sense objects and overcome them by giving up your attachment to them. Everything undergoes change. Because of the passage of time, everything undergoes change. Food which is freshly cooked today is tasty and delicious. While it is fresh, its potentiality for giving strength and health are very good. But the very same articles of food become toxic after a lapse of 2 days. Whatever food you consider to be good, to be useful, to be healthy and beneficial will, after a period of time, change into something bad, something useless, something unhealthy and harmful. These changes are unavoidable. In the context of change, you can also see the four types of devotees: the one who is afflicted and seeks relief from pain and suffering, the one who seeks material boons and prosperity, the one who seeks spiritual knowledge, and the wise one. Over a period of time, the every sane person is likely to progress through all these stages. We can also consider the changes that occur in the course of a lifetime. Immediately after birth, the newborn is called a baby. After a few years, it is described as a child. 20 years later, the same person is considered an adult. And after another 30 years, it will have become a grandparent. These are not four different people. It is the same person all the time, but because of the passage of time, different names are given in accordance with the different stages of life that the individual is passing through. A human being's life, which is most difficult to obtain, undergoes many changes as time goes by. When this is true for a human being, then how much more must it be true for all the other beings and objects of the world? If you ask what is the greatest defect in a human being, you will find that it is the changes which occur in one's physical being. Whether good or bad, these changes cannot be avoided. As changes are inherent in everything in the phenomenal world, you should not develop any attachment or any sense of mindness for anything or anyone. Who is the father? Who is the mother? Who are the children? Who are the family members? Who are the friends? These are all changing forms. You cannot answer these questions for all time. As you become aware of all these changes that are constantly occurring in all these relationships, then how can you develop any attachment to them? The Gita has taught that one has to recognize all the changes that come about with time as fundamental defects and flaws. Therefore, develop complete detachment from the defective forms which are experiencing these changes. They have no performance. Constant practice, detachment or non-detachment, it is the first important discipline that should be undertaken. The second is constant practice. What kind of practice can be called constant? One kind is austerity or penance. The moment people hear this word austerity, they get a little frightened. They inevitably associated atros- austerity with going into the forest, eating whatever fruits and roots are available there, and exposing themselves to all kinds of risk and suffering. Truly speaking, that is not austerity. That is just putting the body through some suffering and punishment. It is not the body that must undergo the suffering, but the mind. The mind tends toward either sloth or chaos or endless activity and is filled with the sense of doership and possessiveness. Austerity is putting such a mind with all these negative tendencies that cling to it. Therefore, through your real torture until all these tendencies let go their hold. Austerity also means removing the defects that are inherent in the sense organs. This is the real austerity. There are three types of austerity. One is the physical austerity of the body, the second one is the vocal austerity of the tongue, and the third is mental austerity of the mind. The three austerities, physical, vocal, and mental. Physical austerity refers to using the body to perform good actions, which include worshipping the Lord and expressing your sense of gratitude by serving great souls. If you earn their grace, the selfish aspects of finance and minus will slowly get reduced. Once these negative qualities decline, then automatically positive qualities and actions will develop. All that point, you will naturally be attracted to the company of like-minded spiritual beings and be inspired to study the Gita and sacred text. In addition to this, you will undertake charity for education, for medicine and hospital, for poor feedings and other good causes. And just as traditionally the different types of charities such as giving away golden cows and land were the means for using the body in sacred activities, so also you will now be using your body in a sacred way. Since you will not be doing any harmful or prohibited activities, you will not put yourself under the spell of the sense of doership and possessiveness. You will be free yourself from bondage to these qualities. All of this can be described as bodily penance. Vocal penance is the cause of good and noble words. Even when you speak the truth, you should not be severe or sharp tongued. You must be careful not to hurt anyone. In this context, the Gita has said that truth must be sweet and non-violent. Use the sacred tongue which has been given to you for giving joy and delight to others and for helping them. Do not give any suffering to another mind. Use your thoughts to help you concentrate and think of the Lord. Use your tongue to describe all the glorious attributes of the Lord. Use words which are highly helpful to others. Use your talk to show the right path to others. Explain to others all the great and good spiritual experiences that you have had. Correct people if they are going on the wrong path by using good words and a sweet tongue. Make sure that no amount of falsehood enters your heart or enters your talk. This is the way to become an adept of truth and non-violence. Better be quiet than tell an untruth. If you are following the path of truth, there may be quite a few problems that you will encounter. A particular sage performing penance had taken an oath to take the path of truth and non-violence came what may. A cruel hunter who heard of this tried to induce the sage to break his vow. The Hunter pursued a deer and drew it in a such a way that it had to pass in front of the sage. Immersed in his austerities, the sage saw the deer hiding in the bush. The hunter came running and asked the sage, "Have you seen a deer passing this way?" The sage was in great conflict. If he told the truth, he would cause harm to the deer, but if he did not tell the truth, he would be breaking his vow. On the other hand, he would commit the sin of causing harm to another being, and on the other, he would commit the sin of lying. The sage found a very good way of dealing with this dilemma. He answered the hunter's query in a somewhat enigmatic way. He said, "The eyes which see cannot speak, and the mouth which speaks cannot see. I cannot make that which has seen speak, and that which can speak see." That is the truth. Even in such difficult situation, one should not tell an untruth, but one may not be able to tell the truth either. When you are engaged in the vocal type of austerity, difficult situations of this kind may arise. You should make every effort to see to it that you escape without uttering any falsehood. Whatever be the circumstances, do not tell a lie. You cannot tell the truth, then it is best for you to keep quiet and observe silence rather than uttering an untruth. Consider the third austerity, the mental austerity. In this type of austerity, you will have to develop good qualities and virtues. Whatever thoughts may be flashing through your mind, your face will show the reflection of them. That is why it is said that face is the index of the mind. All thoughts will be reflected on your face. If you are grief stricken mentally, your face will reflect that state. If there are sacred thoughts in your mind, your face will be very cheerful. And effect of the mind and its thoughts can easily be seen in this way. Only when you have sacred thoughts, sacred feelings and sacred ideas in your mind will you be able to live a happy and cheerful life. If there are bad thoughts torturing you, then whenever somebody comes and talks to you, even if you try to smile, your smile will be artificial and it will betray the disturbed inner state in your heart. You should not allow yourself to be driven to such a state. Always keep yourself happy. When will you be happy and joyous? Only when your thoughts are good and sacred. In order to have such good and sacred thoughts in your mind, you should exercise control over your thoughts. Every day, observe a period of silence. At least for a few hours a day, you should observe silence. Then the mind will get some rest from words and thought waves. A repetition of the holy name and concentration on the Lord can also be practiced to give some rest to the mind. Repetition of the name and thinking of the Lord bring such both inner and outer purity. Just as you bathe your body every day and transform it into a clean outer vehicle, the mind too has to be given a regular purification bath to renew its freshness and sacredness. Now you are concerned mostly with the physical cleanliness, but you must also engage in mental cleanliness, which is equally essential to your life. Good thoughts, good feelings, and good actions go on a way to bring about inner cleanliness. Austerity truly means bringing about a physical, vocal, and mental unity by letting actions, words, and thoughts become one. This is the real austerity. A great soul is one who has been able to enjoy the unity of all these three attributes. If the thoughts, the words, and the actions are different, then a person cannot be considered a great person. Worldly experiences are governed by combinations of the three attributes of these. Inertia and chaos give rise to a slothful nature. Action and reaction give rise to an active and passionate nature, and rhythm or calm gives rise to a pure harmonious nature. Austerity refers to transforming the first of these two, the slothful and passionate nature, into the pure, calm, and harmonious nature. This can be brought about by controlling sloth with the help of passionate nature, and then by controlling passion with the help of the pure, calm nature. In this way, you can enjoy the harmony of all three natures. being joined together as one. Ultimately, when all your actions, words, and deeds have become totally unified, you will have overcome all worldly attributes and you will be free even from the limitations of the pure calm nature. For example, suppose you have stepped on a thorn. If you want to remove the thorn from your foot, there is no need to look for a special instrument. Another thorn is sufficient to remove the first one. Then you can throw both thorns away. In the same way, the two lower natures which have been giving you so much trouble can be removed with the help of thorn of the calm, pure nature. Until you have removed these two lower qualities, you need the calm quality. The calm quality may be described as a golden chain, the passionate quality as a copper chain.